Good morning, students. Now we'll start reflection of sound. In the figure, a diagram of reflection of sound is given. Traveling through a medium, say the sound wave is traveling through air medium. When the sound wave is incident on a second large medium like wall, mountain, long tree, etc., then the sound wave returns back in the first medium after being obstructed by the second medium. The phenomenon is called reflection of sound. In the figure, AB is the incident sound wave, and the sound wave AB from A, the sound wave AB is incident on the point B. B is the point of incidence, and it is obstructed by the reflector, say RS. RS is the reflector, and then after obstruction, it returns back in the way along the path BC. So BC is the reflected wave, and ABD, the angle I, it is the angle of incidence, and CBD, the angle R, is the angle of reflection. So what is reflection of sound? What is the definition of reflection of sound? Traveling through a medium when a sound wave is incident on the surface of a second large medium like wall, mountain, etc., then the sound wave returns back in the first medium again after being obstructed by the second medium. The phenomenon is called reflection of sound. There are two laws of reflection of sound. First law, the incident sound wave, here AB, the reflected sound wave, here BC, and the normal drawn at the point of incidence on the reflecting surface, here BD, lie on the same plane. And the second law is that the angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. Therefore, ABD equal to CBD. These are the two laws of reflection of sound, and these are very much similar to the laws of reflection of light. In case of reflection of light, the light, rays of light, and in this case, there is no rays of sound, there is sound wave. So, in this case, incident sound wave, reflected sound wave, and in the case of light optics, incident ray and reflected ray. Now, these are reflection of sound, and in this case, if the second law states, if the angle of incidence be 30 degrees and angle of reflection will also be 30 degrees, this is very identical to the law of reflection of light. Now, the practical application of reflection of sound, say for hearing the sound coming from very distant place, we often place our palm in a curved manner beside the ears. What is the reason behind this? Because to hear the sound clearly and distinctly, we place our palm beside the ears. The sound coming from the distant place is reflected by the palm and is heard very distinctly and clearly after the reflection of sound by the palm. This is one application. So, application of practical application of reflection of sound, placing of palm beside the ear in a curved manner. Now, a second application. The doctor's stethoscope. The doctor's stethoscope or stethoscope. In the doctor's stethoscope, the sound of reflection, sound of heartbeat is received, and this sound is reflected several times in the tube of the stethoscope and is heard distinctly and clearly by the doctor. So the sound of heartbeat is received and it is reflected several times in the tube, and therefore it is heard clearly and distinctly by the doctor. So it is another practical application of reflection of sound. And in the village area or mafsal, during a cultural function, a cover, namely shamiana, is placed on the stage. This in the shamiana, placing of shamiana, that is cover. In the function stage. In this case, the sound of singing or sound of drama, etc., is reflected by the Samyana and is heard clearly and distinctly by the spectators. So, the reflection of sound is practically applied in this case. So, there are three practical applications of reflection of sound are given. Now, a new phenomenon, that is formation of echo. Echo. What is echo? When sound is reflected by a distant reflector, then the sound is heard distinctly and separately, being separated from the original sound. This separate sound is called echo of the original sound. So we can define echo in this manner. The repeated sound produced by the reflection of original sound by a distant reflector and which is heard distinctly and separately from the original sound. Is called echo of the sound. So echo is a repeated sound. The repeated sound produced by the reflection of the original sound. From where? by a distant reflector. The reflector must be placed at a minimum distance, and this will be discussed later on about the distance between the reflector and the listener or source. So, sound by a distant reflector, and which is heard distinctly and separately from the original sound, is called echo of the sound. You can say in this manner also, reflected by a distant reflector, if a sound be heard distinctly and separately from original sound by the reflection of a distant reflector, that is called echo of the sound. Now, why are we studying distant reflectors about the production of echo? If a minimum distance is not maintained between the reflector and the source, then echo will not be heard by a listener. Now we will discuss about the minimum distance between the reflector and the source. Before going to that, we have to know what is persistence of hearing. Persistence of hearing. Persistence of hearing. What is persistence of hearing? Any short sound persists in our brain for 1 by 10 seconds. Short sound or momentary sound. Short sound is also called momentary sound. Say sound of gun, sound of bombing, sound of quarreling, etc. are called short sound or momentary sound. This is inarticulate sound. So the sounds of bombing, sounds of quarreling, sound from a gun, etc. are inarticulate sound. These sounds persist in human brain for 1 by 10 seconds. This phenomenon is called persistence of hearing. And any articulate articulate sound persists in human brain for 1 by 5 seconds. What is articulate sound? The sounds which have to be realized, which have to be felt by the listener. Say our dialogues, our singing, our recitation, sound of recitation, etc. These are the articulate sounds. Say Tendulkar, 10 one syllabic, dul, second, kor, third. This is Tendulkar is trisyllabic articulate sound. Pen is monosyllabic. But pencil is disyllabic. Tendulkar trisyllabic, etc. So any articulate sound means monosyllabic articulate sound. Persists in human brain for 1 by 5 seconds. And disyllabic 2 by 5 seconds, trisyllabic 3 by 5 seconds, etc. But any short sound persists in human brain for 1 by 10 seconds. This phenomenon is called persistence of hearing. So, according to persistence of hearing, we have to spend at least 1 by 10 seconds for hearing the echo of a momentary sound. So, before completion of 1 by 10 seconds, before completion of 1/10 second. If the echo comes back, that cannot be heard by the listener. So at least 1/10 second has to be completed for hearing the echo of momentary sound. Now we have to know what is the velocity of sound in air. Average velocity of sound in air is 340 meter per second. Average velocity 340 meter per second. At 0 degrees Celsius temperature, though the velocity of sound is 332 meter per second, but always temperature will not be 0 degrees Celsius, and considering this, the average temperature, the average velocity of sound has been taken as 340 meter per second in air. Now therefore in 1/10 second, sound travels 340 into 1/10 meter. That is 34 meter. So sound has to travel at least 34 meter for completion of 1/10 second. And after completion of 1/10 second, that is after traveling 34 meter by sound, we will be able to hear the echo of momentary sound. So by the upward and downward journey, sound travels 34 meter. So the minimum distance between the listener, therefore the least distance between the reflector and the source will be 34/2 meter, that is 17 meter, for hearing the echo of short sound. Though there is a reflector, the echo will not be heard if the reflector is not placed at least 17 meters away from the source, and therefore for hearing the echo of a short sound or momentary sound, the minimum distance between the reflector and the source must be minimum 17 meters. And this is for short sound, this is for momentary sound, but for articulate sound it will be greater. And as the persistence of hearing for articulate sound is 1/5 second, persistence is 1/5 second, so the minimum distance will be double, that is it will be 34 meters. For hearing the echo of articulate sound, monosyllabic articulate sound, minimum distance will be 34 meters. And for disyllabic articulate sound, it will be 68 meters, trisyllabic 34 into 3, 102 meters, etc. And there are some practical applications of echo. We use the echo for many purposes. There is a system, sonar, SONAR, sonar system, sound navigation and range system. In sound navigation and range, we use the echo for measurement of depth of sea. For measurement of depth of sea, what is the depth of sea? For the detection of soul of fish in sea. For detection of mountain under the sea, etc., we use echo. And by hearing the echo, we can determine this distance, this depth, etc. From a machine, the sound is produced, and this sound is sent through the water, and then this sound is reflected by the surface of the water under the sea, and it is again, after deflection, the sound is received in the receiver, and by calculation we can measure depth of the sea. Say the velocity of sound in water is v, and time taken is t for hearing the echo. So the total distance is vt. So the depth of the sea is vt by 2. Vt by 2 is the depth of the sea. In this manner, we can measure the height of a plane. We can detect the shoal of fish under the sea. We can detect the position of a mountain under the sea, etc. This is the application of echo. Thank you, my students. For testing your understanding of this lesson and more videos, log on to www.tubelessons.net.